Hey, it's Tay with Mom on the Spectrum. Today, I'm coming to you with what it has been like to change careers after having the same job for a decade and getting an autism diagnosis at 31 years old. Also, full disclosure, this YouTube thing is new to me. I'm trying to make it consistent, but I'm just gonna be real. I'm a mom and consistency is not a part of our life. If you could see my setup, I still haven't figured the lighting thing out. I'm surrounded by lights right now. So full disclosure, because I have a lot of feelings about social media. I feel like there can be a lot of inauthenticity. I just want to be upfront that I want to produce enjoyable content, but I also want to be a real person. So thank you for allowing me the grace to explore that and for watching this video. If you're new to my channel, if you could please hit the red subscribe button under this video. That's the best way that you can support me and help me continue creating free content for you. I am 32 years old. I received my autism diagnosis last year in 2020, and this is completely off my radar. I did not expect to be diagnosed with autism. With that diagnosis came a lot of life changes. One of those was the realization that the career that I had had for 10 years wasn't a very good fit for me. That was a hard realization to come to. For 10 years, I was a private flute lesson teacher. Flute as in flute player. I got a degree in music performance at TCU, go Frogs. Just kind of what naturally followed was a career in teaching flute. I did that for a decade and then kind of allowed myself to question whether or not that was really serving me in the way that I wanted it to. It just was not. And from the outside, I think everybody was really surprised by that because I had a lot of success with it. I loved my students dearly. I was highly requested at a lot of campuses. For me to change careers was a huge decision and one that I did not make lightly. So how did I get to this point? With my autism diagnosis, I began questioning things that I had thought were truth before, allowing myself to explore whether or not they still felt true to me after the diagnosis. With the diagnosis came a lot of unmasking or learning how to start unmasking, because I believe I'll be doing it for the rest of my life, where I allow myself to not be what society wants me to be, but to be whatever it might be awkward, to speak differently, to spend my time differently, to seek a different career if it wasn't fitting. And when I got really honest with myself, I realized that my job was causing a lot more stress than satisfaction, contentment, joy. I guess I was kind of operating under the guise that everyone just kind of pushes through their job and is completely drained by it at the end of every day. And I know a lot of times for teachers that is the case. That's a whole nother subject for another day. I think teachers are highly underpaid and deserve a lot more time off and a lot more assistance than they get. I was in a slightly different field of education. I still worked in public schools, but I had my own schedule. I worked for myself. I was paid directly by the student's family. So I started questioning why this job wasn't fitting. What I wanted to share in this video are the parts of my job that I feel like were particularly hard for my autistic traits to deal with and manage. Number one, transitions. Oh my gosh. Transitions are so hard for me. They upset me so much. I believe it's because I feel like I take in a lot more sensory information than other people. I'm constantly processing sight, sound, smell, touch. I'm constantly processing who is in my field that I need to speak with and how I would speak to them and what I would say and how I move my body in order not to be awkward, how I direct my eyes in order to seem respectful. So every time I change an environment, all of those processes are happening inside of me. And so transitions are especially stressful because there's no home. You haven't arrived anywhere. You're going somewhere. And I don't feel like I can fully start being in a place until I know that I'm going to be there for a while. I've done the work, I've gotten there, and now I'm here. And that's when I can really start getting my bearings. I know part of that is true for neurotypicals as well, but let me explain more of this. So as my job as a private flute teacher, my day was structured based off of 25-minute lessons. I would work at up to 5 different campuses every day. So I'd work in one place, I'd get in my car and I'd drive to another location, and then get in my car and I'd drive to another location. I would have a different student every 25 minutes, which with their transitions of leaving the band hall and getting in the room, it was more of like 21 to 22 minutes per lesson. So with each transition, I was trying to figure out the right way to relate to the student that had come into my room. I was trying to figure out new social dynamics every 20 minutes or so. They would come in, I would take their payment, and then we would kind of go over our plan for the lesson, and then we would do warm-ups, and then we would do scales, and then we would do music, and then we would do a plan for next week. All of that had to happen within 20 minutes. It felt just like transition after transition transition after transition. I never really felt like I was in one place. I was always constantly on my way to the next place. And once I finally allowed myself to realize, hey, your job is just built on transitions, where as soon as you get accustomed to where you're at, that changes. And I think for an autistic person, that's really, really hard. I think in my experience, I'm realizing that something that would be much better for me is to be in one place. I can be in one place for a really long time. I'm actually really good at that. And so that's something that I'm transitioning toward. Another element that made it really tricky for me with my flute teaching was a lack of defined roles. For me, it was so tricky. I've always been perceived as much younger than I am. I'm 32, but when you're teaching high school students and you look younger, there can be some confusion as to how to relate to a younger teacher. And so I felt very different than any of the other teachers that were there, and I didn't really know how to interact with the students. I don't necessarily know that anybody else would have picked up on that, because I'm really good at learning social dynamics and kind of implementing that. It was something I was constantly calibrating. So a student would come in and I'd be thinking, okay, is this an appropriate length of time for introductions? Is this an appropriate length of time to talk about how their week went? Am I being awkward right now? Where are my eyes supposed to be? I would guess that they probably were not picking up on that. I think that my students were really comfortable with me, but every single session I would really have to think about, okay, how can I make them feel comfortable? Is this an appropriate length of time to talk about this subject? And then I would kind of get this sense of like, oh, I'm being awkward. Because of the unique nature of my job, I didn't give grades. I couldn't give grades for any assignments that I assigned them because they're paying to come see me during their school classes. And I could just give them assignments for their best interest to do that week, but I had no means of holding them accountable other than I can stop teaching you if you don't do these assignments. It was a very different type of relationship. It had to be built more on trust and kind of understanding where they were coming from so I could find other ways to motivate them. In addition to that kind of weird undefined role of a unique type of teacher who appeared younger. I know that I am young, but a lot of people would mistake me for a high schooler when I was in high schools, that kind of thing. Also undefined role is me and the band directors that I worked with. I ran my own company, but I would be asked by band directors to come into the school and work with their program. The band directors weren't my bosses, but they did help me get my foot in the door and start working on their campus. I always felt really weird because I respected these band directors so much and I never knew how to interact with them. I would schedule whenever I had to go into the band hall for making copies or having forms signed, that type of stuff. I would always schedule it around when the band directors were there. I didn't know how to interact with them and I wanted to so badly, but I don't understand small talk. It was a hard way to form a bond. Like I would only see them for a few minutes at a time, which was not long enough to get into anything deep. So it was all small talk all the time. And I really respected the band directors I worked with, but I felt so much anxiety about talking to them every single time I did. And that still makes me really sad today. I felt really deficient in that skill of being able to walk into an office and know what to say and be normal. You know, on the way there, I would be rehearsing what I was going to say, even if it was just one line like, hey, can you sign this form for me? Hey, can you sign this form for me? Hey, hope you're having a great day. Can you sign this form for me? I would talk through it in my head like, how would this not sound creepy? How would this sound normal? And that was so draining for me. Like, I wish it could just be a normal thing. And then also undefined roles with the parents, because the parents are paying me, but they hardly ever met me. I unintentionally dressed younger and I could feel it reflected back to me through the parents of them not quite knowing where to place me. Am I an adult? Am I like a super young adult who like doesn't really know the ropes? I had workarounds where I made sure that I came across really professional. I had a logo on every email that I sent. I had a website that looked really nice, but the lack of defined roles was really, really hard for me. I kind of shape-shifted a lot. There were a lot of different needs that I had to constantly fill that weren't necessarily paid positions, which brings me to the third issue that I had with this position, not knowing when to stop. So because I was self-employed, I only received payment when I was teaching a flute lesson. But I felt the need to do more. I didn't understand where my line started and stopped between my responsibilities. So I would go way out of the way. I would contact companies to like donate stuff for competitions that we had, where I would orchestrate these competitions between all the campuses. Whoever practiced the most or performed in front of the most people, they would get, free Chipotle or free Sonic or ice cream. And I went to all these great extents to do that. And I'm not saying that for applause or anything. Like, I just didn't know I was wearing myself out because I didn't didn't understand. I need very clear and defined boundaries for what my role is supposed to be and what my job responsibilities are. So I guess this bullet point would be better described as undefined job responsibilities. So in addition to orchestrating these elaborate competitions, which took so much of my time, I would also plan very big flute performance events for Christmas where we would go to the mall, and I would combine all of the flute sections from all of the different campuses who didn't even necessarily know each other. I was like, oh, we're going to do flute bonding between the middle school and high school, and they'll get to know each other. All of those things were such fun ideas that just took the life out of me. It's not one of those things of like, oh, you're a great teacher. It's not that. It's like I didn't know how to stop. I didn't ever feel like I was doing enough because I didn't have anybody telling me what to do. It's like in one sense, working for myself was really good because I had a lot of flexibility, but I needed a lot more structure than I had so that I could pace myself. The fourth thing that was really hard about my job, I think this term makes sense, emotional reciprocity. So with these constantly changing social environments, I was constantly adapting to different people. I loved each of my students so much. I would constantly stress out about how to interact with them in a way that was comfortable to them. If you spend one-on-one time with somebody in a small room every week, you're going to build a relationship with that person. If I know that somebody's going to want a hug from me, I try to size up like, how tall are you compared to me? And like, where should my arms go? Should they go above yours or below yours? Because I'm very awkward with hugs, and I don't understand them. I usually give awkward hugs. If you hug me, that's just how I am. I just always felt like I would say something that wasn't quite right. It was more so of an inability to find a flow, and I still get really upset about that today. I just have such a hard time finding a flow because especially with kids, like they're not going to go super deep. High school kids, they're pretty surface level. Not that they don't have deep thoughts, of course they do. They haven't necessarily developed the skills to talk about deep subjects. So what are you supposed to talk about with high schoolers? A lot of times they like talking about surface level things, and I am so ill-equipped to do that. It was really, really hard being able to match what they needed from me. And over time, I did this for a decade. I remember the last couple of years, the last 2 years maybe that I was teaching, I realized one day, I am really good at this. And I was requested all over. I did master classes, and band directors, they loved me. And I don't say that to brag. I just say that because after spending so long in this field, I just kind of learned a pattern that worked for me. And I wouldn't say that it made it easier. In a way, it almost became harder because it was like I had to operate by this set of rules that it almost kind of took the life out of it for me. I operate by rules in many areas of my life, but this felt different. It was like I had devised this way of succeeding in this field, but I felt exhausted and completely depleted, and it wasn't filling me up. Another really big element of all of this that just wasn't right for me was the sensory aspect of my job. In every school that I would go into, brace yourself, was in a very small room. You could fit 2 people in it, and it was not comfortable. Fluorescent lit, always smelled horrible because you had instruments who were practicing in there and like releasing their spit valve. So there's like spit on the floor. They were almost never cleaned. And that was something that I tried to take care of. And my job was to email everybody that I could, like, hey, we have to get the practice rooms cleaned. And so I was in a fluorescent lit room that smelled bad, that had puddles in it. In a way, that's kind of just band life. You get used to it. I've been in band since I was like 10, but being in the small room with all of them all of the time, it got to be way too much for me. And then lastly, just an interesting tidbit that I kind of realized as I was thinking through these things. In college, I pursued flute because that was one of my special interests, and I was really good at it. I remember that mostly what I wanted to be when I grew up was a mom, but I was so good at flute that I got a scholarship. I decided to continue studying flute. And then after school, I was asked to start teaching, and so I started doing that without really thinking about it. And when I was asked to start teaching, I panicked because even though I had been doing this since I was 10, I literally needed to know how to teach. I called my high school teacher and I said, hey, I want to pay you and take lessons from you, but I want you to teach me how to teach. And I remember, I think she was kind of taken aback by it, because she's like, you just got a flute degree. That's part of what you were supposed to learn. She's wonderful. She's one of my really good friends now. But I remember I would sit and I would just learn from her, and I needed to know literally what to do. Like, what do you do for warm-ups? What do you do for scales? What do you do for exercises? What do you do for solos? What books do you use? What books should I order? Even though I had gone through this experience myself, I had a really hard time translating that to how I would actually use it to teach. And that's a skill I think maybe I've been able to improve a little bit on my own over the past 10 years. But I do remember freaking out when it was actually actually time to teach, and having to know literally, how do I teach this? What does it look like? What should I print out? And what should I say to them? What should the requirements be? I really needed a blueprint of exactly what it meant to be a flute teacher. I find that that's generally true for me in life. I really need to know very explicitly what's expected of me. And after I've been in a field for a while, a decade, that's what it takes, I kind of can go on autopilot after a decade and kind of figure it out. I will tell you that deciding that I needed to step into a different career was really liberating. I joined a career change workshop through TCU that was wonderful, and it kind of helped me narrow down things that I was really good at or wanted to pursue. It helped me take concrete steps and make a plan for how to pursue those things. So what I'm currently doing now is I'm becoming certified to be a software programmer, something in coding. I'm getting certified for back-end development, front-end development, and React development, which I'm really excited about. I'm really excited because I will get to spend less time with people. I truly love people, but I don't like to spend very much time with them. In the coding world, I will get to work on projects by myself for long periods of time. I will also be able to work on projects with other people virtually and be able to present things with teams occasionally. So I'll still be working with people, but I'll have much more time to myself. I'll hopefully most likely be able to get a job that I can work virtually so that I can work from my own home environment, which will be more comfortable for me. I can have flexibility. I'll be able to take more breaks for myself whenever my mental health is kind of getting the best of me. As I have started learning new skills, I've felt so empowered and just joyful because this is a huge change for me, but it feels like I'm finally taking my life into my own hands and realizing, okay, I have a very specific way of seeing the world and a very specific way that my brain works, and it's okay to say, hey, what I've done before didn't work and I'm going to try something different. It's really scary and there's a lot of unknown variables, but I can tell you, even before having a new job, just the process of shifting and learning new information and kind of visualizing what my life can be in a different field has been so liberating. And I'm really lucky that I've been able to have the time to do that. I know that time is definitely a luxury, and so if that's you listening, I hope that you will take the things that are speaking to you right now and let them be a seed that's kind of planted in your life. So a career change might not be possible right now, but maybe you could buy a book about a new subject that really interests you that you could see yourself pursuing more in the future. I do think it's important that we honor the brains that we have, and I feel like we can do that a little bit better each day. We have a little bit more information about how to do that each day based on our experiences and how our body reacts to what we are living in the moment. So I do want to encourage you, if you're like me, you've received an adult autism diagnosis or just kind of coming to grips with learning more about your autism diagnosis, I think it can be a really wonderful thing to explore the possibility of a career change. I personally have felt a lot more alive. I felt a lot more invigorated thinking about new possibilities for myself. I have a lot of hope that there's different ways out there to really utilize the brain that I have and be more fulfilled by that. I also have that hope for you. I think that being neurodiverse is definitely a gift in a lot of ways, a very, very challenging gift that we have to come to grips with every day. You're not alone. We can learn to love the brain that we have, and I hope that you will share with me in the comments your own career journey and let me know if you've considered a career change, what's holding you back. I'd love to have a conversation with you. My brain does a lot better not on social media, so I don't have Facebook or Instagram, but I'd love to have a conversation with you in the comments and hear where you're at. If you enjoyed this video, if you could hit the thumbs up, that would help me out greatly. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!